couple of years ago, I got a little anamorphic lens adapter for my phone. This came with a clip that isn't particularly clippy. And I think actually the problem is that I use a very small phone. I've got an iPhone 13 mini. Even when you've got it positioned optimally, is really close to the edge of the phone. So it's really close to slipping off. Anyway, the point is, I've got this thing that didn't really cost that much money, and it's not useful for the purpose that I got it for originally. And so it's been sat in the drawer. And I've thought, well, the front of it, it's not huge, but it's much bigger than the back of it. There are two lenses that I have, which have got small front elements. And I've got this one, this TT Artisan one. And in fact, I did try the TT Artisan one, but the problem is that it was kind of trying to focus through this thing that was stuck on it. So actually nothing was in focus. This is the challenge I have. This is the challenge. The size of the back of the anamorphic lens doesn't seem to be all that different from the size of the front. It feels like it's worth having a bit of a play around to try and get this on here somehow. Within the culture of 3D printing, people make stuff and then they make them available online, and quite a lot of them are free. The chances of someone else having this precise lens and this precise lens and wanting to stick this on here, gone to the trouble and effort of making a 3D printed adapter, bracket, whatever, that does that is very small. But there are other reasons why these things can exist. So I was wondering whether I need another lens. So this is a lens, it's got a front element, it's got a back element. Is that enough? If I stick that to the sensor of my camera, will that generate me an image? And the truth is yes, but the reality is no. So if I just move this around now with nothing on the front of it, I can see light. And if you put the anamorphic lens and just kind of hold it there, and in fact I have done a shoot, there is a thing, I forget what it's called. It's called something like shifting. I'll find the term. And where you hold a camera and you deliberately hold a proper lens there and you take photos. And I have done a shoot and it's got this sort of ethereal look to it. But the problem is that this lens won't focus. So it's only ever just light and shapes and colours. What I actually need is a fully functioning lens on the front of the camera, on which I will attach this. I don't expect this to be perfect. This is just something that it's fun to try. Dare I say that it's good enough to just be fun? All I need is a thing that's got 39mm on the outside threaded and 17mm on the inside threaded, and then I can attach that to that. And I've got so close, I feel like I can't let it go. I've got this 37mm exterior thread and a 17mm interior thread, but here's the trouble, it physically goes on the front but it doesn't stay. So obviously that's no good. One of the basic things that you can do with 3D prints on the Bamboo Lab anyway platform, what's it called, Bamboo Handy, is that you can increase the dimensions. But as an object, you can't usually do each individual thing because people have uploaded it as an object for it to be printed at that size. So the best you can do is kind of fudge it. If I get the exterior one to fit perfectly, the interior one is too big and it will just fall off. Infuriatingly close, within 2 millimeters, but it's the millimeters that makes all the difference when you're at this size. This is small. But that 17 to 35mm filter is available to download. I've got it, I'm looking at it. So this is where I've got to. I've got this party ring on the screen, and all I need to do is to figure out how to change some of the dimensions of this, and I don't know how. The long and the short of this bit is that I just couldn't figure it out. the bit that allows the lens to screw onto the phone is immaterial to me because I'm not going to be screwing it onto the phone. That depth, I don't need that depth. I went a little bit destructive with a screwdriver and a hammer, and I've removed that screw element. This is now as basic as this item gets. So what I'm left with, anamorphic lens on the front, element on the back. So now, the task now is to get this item as close as I can to this lens. So that might still require an adapter, but it's a completely different adapter. Because this is an all manual lens, this is the focusing that I'm doing here. Can you see the entire barrel moves in, including this anamorphic lens that I just got sat on top of it? I think this can work. I'd like to think I'm not just going to resort to double-sided tape, but I am. Just trying to think what I could do. If I had like a filter thread blank, a screw-in lens cap. If I had a screw-in lens cap on the front of this lens, I could then cut a rectangular hole in that and like friction fit this into it. Because my next step, if this works, my next step is, okay, so how can I make that, give that some more permanence? And the only thing I can think of is super glue. And I'll come back to that in a little while. So the next thing that you'll see in this video will be, I don't know, some photos of the garden maybe? Or the dog, probably. I felt like that worked, but I don't want to have to rely on tiny bits of cut up double-sided tape each time I want to do this. I went back through the bits I'd already 3D printed and happened to pick up the very first thing when I was still trying to figure out what things might be called. This adapter says it's for adapting a C-mount lens to an M42 lens, which is effectively the same thing I'm trying to do, just with a different host lens and attachment lens. As it turns out, the C-mount is the same size as this smartphone size. Once I'd pried the original thread off, it fits both parts of this lens perfectly. What you can then do in Bamboo Handy is to move the Z-axis, so you're not changing any dimensions as much as you are telling the printer at what point on the model to begin printing. So I moved the start point of the model below the start point of the printing plate because I needed the thread to stay the same, but just be less of it. With new adapter printed, it's back out to test again. What's of note here is that there are bits definitely in focus. This is a part of a skateboard park, and you can see that some of the railing and some of the snow and the ice on the ground is in focus. Next is to figure out, when I put that lens on that lens, what does that mean for the focus throw of this? So functionally, practically, what is the closest focusing distance? does infinity still mean infinity, and what's in the middle? And I think that's going to relate to the f-stop that I choose. I'm going to try and stick with f8 because that seems to be the most reasonable place to put it. So, ruler. I'm using the fold-out ruler that I got in my Christmas stocking because I'm only 48. I think minimum focus distance is 13 centimeters, which seems weirdly close. I'm trying to match up the lens markings, which have numbers that don't really relate to actual distances anymore, but I'm trying to match them up to something. In camera, this did actually look just as in sharp as the 13 centimeters on the ruler did, but I can appreciate here it doesn't really look like it's in focus at all. This is the point where the normal version of Jeff would just kind of stop, would just walk away from the project as kind of close enough. But I'm trying to be a bit better than that. I'm trying to be not a completist, but I'm trying to be more consistent. So right now, I haven't used the lens for anything proper, and I don't have the final practical edge. So I can't relate distances in the real world to anything on the lens because it didn't quite work properly. So I'm actually going to measure stuff, and then I'm going to go out and shoot some stuff. So nearly there. I've set up the camera so the lens is about where the wall starts, just so I've got visual reference for positioning. Incidentally, the green thing is the lid of a bucket of tennis balls. I stuck it to the wall so I could figure out what the actual ratio is for this lens setup. I needed something round. Going back to the per-gear lens, I'm trying to specifically measure distances as they relate to the distance markers in meters on the lens. I've got a laser measure here, and I'm setting the lens to each of the available numbers on the lens and measuring against the wall where the focus seems to be. And this is what I end up with. I've already established that 0.2 is around 12 centimeters, except it wasn't quite as precise as that, so I've rounded to give me these. As you can see, the actual distances are way off what the per-gear lens says it's focusing to. Is that the anamorphic lens? Is it the per-gear being staggeringly inaccurate? No idea. And this video is long enough now, so I'm going to stop there. The next video is going to be a little short film that I've made with just this lens attached. Let me know what you think. Obviously, to see that, and if you've made it this far, you're going to want to subscribe and have notifications on. So why don't you just do that, and I'll see you again.